We are just 6 days away from the first game in the 2024 season. It's felt like a million years, but we are finally almost here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, as always, a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor Pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our own online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BELIEVE to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. We're back. Dropped an episode on a Wednesday. Not really an episode, more of an announcement video for all of the work and tirelessly long hours that me, Nick, many others are going to be putting in. Nick's taking a last-minute little staycation. Gets to be at a nice beach house doing a pod from beautiful lakeside. I'm in my normal setup and don't get that. Nick's co-host, I was on JP Peterson's show today. He's in Dublin drinking Guinnesses. It's just nothing's going well for me, Nick, except one thing. We have football, UCF football specifically, in 6 days. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm oceanside. I'm not lakeside.
Oh, that's right.
I was going to say I'm in beautiful Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, here on the West Coast, but I think you can tell it's not so beautiful today. It's not so beautiful. It's been raining since this morning. There's nobody out here. I'm overlooking the pool patio. There's not one single sign of life out here. There's nobody in my vision across the beach. The rain has finally stopped, but it's not really beautiful. But so we'll pray for better weather tomorrow. But yeah, we're 6 days away from UCF football. I'm excited. I've enjoyed the offseason. This is the first football offseason, John, that I truly enjoyed. Like, there's been so many other sports to tide me over. But now that we're here, we're so close. I'm starting to get the goosebumps again, the butterflies. I mean, we got a game as we record. We have an actual game that counts, not UCF related, but for those of you who are keeping your tabs on the rest of the state, Florida State, Georgia Tech, in Dublin, in less than 48 hours. I'm pumped for that because it's real football. But of course, for the UCF fans out there, we're 6 days away. We're 6 days away, if you can believe it, against something called New Hampshire.
It's a school. I guess we found that out when the schedule got released. It's a school that plays football.
Well, I remembered. They had this running back, Dylan Lobby. He's the one that's with the Raiders now. I think he got drafted in like the 6th or 7th round. He's the running back. So I guess I kind of forgot that Dylan Lobby was a New Hampshire, Wildcat, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we know a little bit more about them, I guess. But
yeah, me and you, I'll say it here. I'm sure it's not hyperbole that me and you have not done any of our pregame studying that we normally do. During the season, our pregame studying, we really do a deep dive on the team. We have to record that episode. We record on Thursdays as of now. That's going to change very quickly, and by very quickly, I mean changing next week. But we usually do our analysis episode dropping on Thursday. We record like Tuesday or Wednesday. That's going to change next week, and I do not know one thing about New Hampshire. Our friend Stephen Leonard knows they have 2 FCS All-American defensive ends. We know that just from what he said. But we're going to do more of our deep dive next week. That episode will be dropping on Tuesday, so be on the lookout for that. But this is the last episode, Nick. This is the last episode where we have nothing to talk about other than football. Like, we'll be dropping our predictions like we always do. This is the 3rd season we're doing this now, where we give our final predictions. But after this, the next episode you'll see from us is actual football talk. So I'm pumped. I know you saw, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more in depth, but we've got a lot of stuff coming to the Charge On channel. I know if you want to skip to our records, it's down in the link, or the time codes below, but figured I would mention this off the top if any of you missed the video on Wednesday. We've got a lot of content coming to the channel. Nick will be in Orlando more times this year in the next 4 months than he will have ever been since graduating college.
I haven't even been to Orlando since.
It's been a minute.
I think it was the Baylor game. Baylor game.
Yeah, the Baylor game kept Nick out of Orlando for at least minimum almost
it was
a year.
the West Virginia. It was the West Virginia game.
There you go. Game. Well, that was a rough one too. But we're really excited. We've got the pregame live shows from the Bounce House coming, the postgame live shows where, I am a little biased. I'm really pumped for that. To be on the field postgame in a cabana. We're going to be in a cabana. Can't afford one, but we can be in one where nobody's in the stadium. So we're really looking forward to that. We've got the live watch-alongs that I'm excited to interact with you guys, and then the bye-week shows. And we've got more stuff that we're just trying to work out, but those are the things we're ready to announce now, and we're so pumped. But I want to ask you, Nick, because, like I said, you're going to be tackling on a lot. I'm so grateful to have you a part of this team, and this team is basically the two of us. But I'm ecstatic to have you for another season, and you putting in some extra man work to bring the UCF Charge On fans some great content.
Yeah, I'm stoked to get back into the grind, I guess you could say. The drive is the drive. We know Tampa to Orlando. It's gonna be interesting to do that, But at the same time, we love the team. Want to do our best to cover them the best way possible for all the fans out there. There's no better way to do it than to be there. So I'm excited to spend most of my fall Saturdays elsewhere. Looking forward to that. It should be fun.
So let's get into it. I think we talked about a pre-show. I'm pretty positive we both were at an 8-4 record for the Knights. We had it in a different way. We had it. I literally cannot remember. It was like 6 months ago. I cannot remember which games I had wins. I can't remember the games I had losses. Same vice versa for you. If I can't remember my own stuff, I cannot remember what you said. So we're going to go through. We've had a lot of talking, a lot of players join, and we're going to go through our final predictions. Now, I do want to make it clear, we have the right to change this in the week. If UCF loses week 3 to TCU and week 4 to Colorado, I have the right to change my opinion, and so does Nick. Just want to throw that out there. But Nick, you ready to do some predictions? Get this thing rolling?
Let's do it. I'm great at predictions. I said 6-6 last year. I was right on the money, so let's go.
That is correct. Nick was right on the money. But big season for UCF. It's a big-time season. We're going to go through and talk about each game. Not too long. Going to try and keep this short, but as you know with this show, me and Nick love to talk. So we're going to group the 2 weeks together like we did in the first episode that we did this. New Hampshire, Sam Houston. The one thing I will say is there's, I think, a 5% chance UCF loses each of these games. I don't want to be, I'm going to give them a chance to lose, but it would be crazy. I think we both agree. What I will say is, and we asked this on the JP Peterson show that you hosted today, UCF needs to come out and really show their dominance, and not just show their dominance like, okay, it's Sam Houston, okay, it's New Hampshire. They need to show like, okay, this team is sharp. Like, okay, they've got something going. They're ready to take on some real opponents. How is KJ going to look? How is Gus calling the plays? Again, that we know of. He was calling the plays the second half of last year. How does it all work together? Does the defense look better? There's a lot of questions that we're not going to really have answered in 2 weeks, Nick, but we're going to have an idea of when week 3 hits, is this team going to be a boom or is it going to be a bust?
Yeah, the first 2 games for me, it's all about just as you're a fan, just having fun, that you're seeing the team again. I mean, that's really all I think there is to it. Both these games are at home. Even both of these teams, when you look at them, like it's not like this was a 6-5 New Hampshire team last year. This was a 3-9 Sam Houston team last year. So it's not like there's like some major threat from one of these teams. I guess crazier things have happened, but I don't see. There'd have to be a lot of things to go wrong for UCF to drop either of these games. I think we just want to see the new defensive scheme, the way that looks. Obviously, priority number one before you get into Big 12 play is just hopefully that everybody comes out unscathed for both of these games. In a perfect world, UCF gets out to a big lead in both these games, and we get a chance to utilize the full strength of the roster. And you get a look at some of these guys who probably are not going to be first team guys as the season goes on. Like even at quarterback, I mean, obviously KJ Jefferson's the guy, but I think it'd be kind of cool if UCF has some wiggle room, which I would expect them to have. I did like a 43-point favorite in this first game. If they jump out to a lead like that, third quarter, maybe you start seeing a Ja'Curry Brown and some guys like that get some work. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at for these two games. But as you said, as we've been saying, I don't think you're going to learn anything about this team until we get to week 3.
No, and you made a great point. Like, if you go back to even last season, Kent State, week 1, 56-6, right? Defense completely shut Kent State down. And then what do you know? You watch the actual tough games, and UCF's defense couldn't stop the run to save their life. So you go week by week. Again, the second toss-up game was Villanova, and they won 48-14. Now, I will say, against Villanova, you didn't have John Rice Plumlee. You had Timmy McClain. The offense looked okay. It clearly didn't look that great, but this season you get 2 of those games back-to-back where you can really refine. It's basically practice scrimmage games, if we're being completely honest. You're probably going to see Ja'Curry Brown. You might see E.J. Colson. You're going to see some young guys go out there. And listen, you're going to need it. We don't know how long John Walker's going to be out. That's a really good couple of games to really ensure what type of depth you have behind on that defensive line. And we'll get into all that on Tuesday about John Walker. We find out Monday what's going on with that. But let's keep moving. We both have 2-0. That should be a given. TCU, week 3. Nick, I have this right now. I don't have a win or loss. We have a couple games that we did not choose. We are going into the episode blind. This is the game, in my opinion. If you talk about a singular game that could be the most vital or important, I think we said it last year about Boise State. It feels awfully similar to Boise State. You're going on the road, tough environment, haven't been tested yet. This is your first real test. I think UCF is the better overall team, but as we know in the Big 12, going on the road is one of the toughest things to do. I am going to say a win right now, but I find it hard to believe, unless this team is just, again, a Big 12 championship type team, which I'm not saying they're not. We just haven't seen it yet. The defense is the big question, right? I find it hard to believe they're going to win all 3 of those games between TCU, Florida, and Colorado. That's a hard stretch to win 3 straight. Not saying it can't be done. I'm going to give them the win at TCU right now, but it would not shock me in the slightest if they took a loss. And if they take a loss there, Nick, that's where it could be not sirens going off, but okay, you need to win your next 2-3 games.
Yeah, the TCU game is one that on this schedule, I think it's hard to say must win because you are going on the road in conference play, and it's going to be after you get 2 cupcakes to start the season. So, but I truly believe. I mean, I've been mentioning a lot about the strength of the Big 12 conference and how I believe there's 6 or 7 teams that I can see winning the conference, and there's even others that I think are going to flirt with 8 or 9 wins maybe. TCU's not one of those teams that comes to mind. It's crazy. It's like this team was in the national championship, 18 or almost 20 months ago. Yeah, almost 2 years ago. And so much of that team and those players have obviously moved on to the NFL, and it's like a shell of what they were. But there's still some good talent there. I mean, Josh Hoover was a freshman last year, kind of got thrown into the fire, but had some good games, but he had some inconsistencies, which you'd expect as a freshman. But so he threw for 300 yards or more in 5 of his last 6 games last season, albeit the fact that they were throwing like more than 40 times throughout. Yeah. So I'm sure that sort of inflated it. They brought in some really good transfers, Brockmeyer from Alabama, Bless Harris from Florida State on the offensive line. So it's not a team that doesn't have any parts to it, but it's not one of my contenders in the Big 12 necessarily. I think UCF has a more talented roster than TCU. I probably envision it being a little bit of a dogfight because it is on the road. But with all that being said, I'm going to give UCF the benefit of the doubt and say that they get this done and improve to 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, it feels, again, I said a lot like Boise State. kind of a lot like Kansas State last year. Even though Kansas State, there was so much hype. It's your first Big 12 game as a program, and UCF put up a good fight there. But I think this gives similar vibes to that, where you have to go on the road. And not necessarily, I'm not trying to throw shade at TCU, but not one of the toughest environments in the Big 12. Still going to be a tough atmosphere. You're going to have to go in there and still beat a very good coached TCU team. So both have them going 3-0. Week 4, the one that a lot of people are anticipating along with Florida, but Deion comes to Orlando, first home game of the Big 12 season in terms of the actual Big 12 schedule. Listen, I think a lot of people are just writing in a dub because Colorado has no defense. And people are totally forgetting that UCF also had no defense last year. And they're putting in predictions as if, UCF's defense is going to be so much better. Well, why can't Colorado's? Does Colorado have a really rough offensive line? Yes, we don't know how it's going to work this season. They brought in a lot of transfers. We have no idea. I do think the on-the-road factor for Colorado is going to come into play here. The Bounce House is something else. That place is going to... I can't wait for that game, Nick. I think me and you are probably most excited just to feel the atmosphere of that game. Because though I think a lot of people... There's going to be some Colorado fans. Deion just attracts that type of people. Orlando's going to show out for the game. I personally think UCF will win this game. But again, I put the caveat out there. UCF has to play better defense than they did last season. If they don't and you get into an offensive shooting match, you're not going to beat Shedeur Sanders on the other side of the football. And that's, I know it's Gus Malzahn and all that, but you need to be able to play some defense and get some stops. So I'm going to go UCF win. 4-0 would be great, but you don't want to get into a shooting match.
Yeah, this is one of the tougher games to forecast. Probably, even though they faced Utah at the end of the season, I know they have Arizona there too, it is probably the most anticipated home game of the season because of the Deion Shedeur factor. It's Colorado. And, they brought it on themselves that they made themselves an enemy at just about everyone that's not them. I know there's a lot of people that are very high on Colorado. There's a lot of people that think that they're going to be irrelevant. Listen, I think it's important to note, Shedeur Sanders, for some of the criticism he gets, but behind the offensive line last year, which should be better. I mean, quite frankly, it can't get any worse. Behind that offensive line, the guy threw 27 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. I mean, he's talented. There's no disputing that. Between Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, I mean, that's a really good wide receiver tandem right there. And obviously, Travis Hunter is going to play, corner as well. We'll see how that keeps up throughout the season. Defense as well. I mean, it's like, it can't get any worse, can it? They brought in a lot of transfers. So maybe I'm a little bit more optimistic than some of the Colorado detractors. Man, this is one of those games. I didn't really go in with a set pick for this. I was going to just kind of talk it out and see how I thought. I looked at Colorado's schedule coming into this, and they got a slippery slope. I mean, North Dakota State in week 1's no joke.
No.
North Dakota State is, I know Deion was kind of upset, too, about, who scheduled that game in week 1. Nebraska, week 2, Nebraska should be better. Colorado State, that was a dogfight last year, one of the games of the year. And then Baylor before they come to UCF, and then they have Kansas State after UCF, so.
Tough stretch. I mean,
it's a tough stretch. Man, I hate to do this, but I think I'm going to go Colorado.
All right. Listen.
I hate to do it, but I'm going to go Colorado.
And for all the people, and I want to make it very clear, I'm going with UCF just based on the fact that I had it before. I feel confident, and I'm picking more so because UCF is at home. At the end of the day, if UCF cannot, Colorado is a high-powered offense. You can't say anything about it. They can score points. If UCF puts up the defense or shows out the defense they did last year, Colorado will win this game. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Deion is going to have everybody. You know how many Florida kids are on that team? They're going to want to win in Florida. They're going to have a bunch of friends there. So it's not going to be this normal team just coming from out of state. It's kind of like a semi-Florida team with how many Florida kids are on the team. So I've got them 4-0. Nick's got them 3-1. Let's go to the game that some people would just want to win that game and lose every other game, which is absolutely ridiculous to me. But Florida, going to Florida, week 5. Obviously, let me rephrase that. You had the bye week after TCU. So we'll have the bye week after TCU, then you get Colorado, which we didn't mention. You do get a bye week before you play Colorado next, so I'll even add that into my little, you get a little bit of a rest before you have to take on Dion. But a tough 2-week stretch. You play Colorado, and then you have to go on the road to Florida to play in the Swamp. I'm not changing my pick. Regardless of being 5-0 sounds really scary and probably not going to happen, I'm not picking against UCF in this game. I think at this point, Florida is going to be down in the dumps. Billy Napier is going to be on the hot seat. I don't think they're that talented as a football team this season. I think people knew they weren't talented, and then all of a sudden switched up in the middle of the summer like, oh, Florida's got some talent. No, they lost basically every receiver you could imagine. The defense looks very suspect. I don't think Florida is going to beat UCF. I think UCF's going to go in there and get a win. That's just me.
Well, see, the Colorado and Florida game was, I would, when I went in my predictions, I said, okay, they're going to get one of these. And I already picked Colorado to beat UCF, so I'm going to do it. And I'm flip-flopping here. In my original prediction, I had UCF beating Colorado and losing to Florida. I'm flip-flopping it. I'm going to go down with the ship. Okay. This might be the emotional side of me speaking.
Changed his mind, folks.
This might be the emotional side of me speaking, but I'm going to go with UCF to go into the Swamp and get it done. But it's not going to be. But this is not going to be. It's not going to be easy. Now, I know you said that you're not very high on this Florida team. A lot of people are not. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't think Florida's that bad of a football team. I think people are looking at their schedule more so and going, well, how are they going to get through that? I think it's a product of the conference they play in. Is probably going to make them look maybe a little worse than I think what they are. I think Graham Mertz had a great season last year. Certainly exceeded all expectations. They lose Trevor Etienne, but Montreal Johnson, he's no joke back there. They lose Ricky Pearsall, but they return Eugene Wilson, solid receiver. I don't know if he's a good one in the SEC necessarily, but he's still a solid receiver. The offensive line has been reworked, and they have to get better there. The defense we'll wait and see on that one, but yeah, I mean, I think this is the interesting stretch for Florida because they got to go Miami, and they get their Samford, the Cupcake, A&M, Mississippi State, and UCF. So this is like the manageable part of their schedule. I know they're going to be having, this is where if Billy Napier is going to hold on to his job before they get to that late season slate, he's going to have to try to get through these first 5 games 4-1. But I still think all that being said, I'm gonna stick. I'm not really sticking. I'm flipping. I'm going to flip to UCF getting it done on the road in the Swamp because I'm going to that game as a fan probably. And yeah, that's my reasoning, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I did say that we're going to do a pregame and postgame live show for that game. That's probably going to be one of the most non-produced pregame and postgame show because I'm probably going to do it on my phone in a car where me and you will probably be in the same car talking about the game. It'll be very gross, but I think that's the one game we just have to give our thoughts out. And I think what's big, Nick, before we move on to Cincinnati, what I think is going to be the biggest factor is how Florida is coming into that game. Is Florida undefeated? Does Florida have 2 to 3 losses? Did Florida beat Miami or not? I think those are all factors. Because if Florida comes in undefeated, you're playing in the Swamp is the Swamp, but you're playing in a different type of game when it comes to there. And I kind of hope it is. Because if UCF comes in undefeated, Florida comes in undefeated, that's college game day. Like, that's a college game day type of game. So I hope Florida's undefeated. Realistically, they're not going to be because they're not that great of a football team. I agree with you, though. I think a lot of people are undermining the talent of the football team. I just don't think they're as good as people are even making it out to be. But let's go. So you've got them 4-1. I've got them 5-0, which scares the hell out of me. Definitely don't think that's going to happen. But let's go to Cincinnati. I mean, no offense. They named Brendan Sorsby their starting QB out of Indiana. I don't know what people were trying to twist this and act like he's really good. Go watch his Indiana footage and go look at his stats. I mean, dude could barely throw over 200 yards in a game. It's also against Indiana, but Cincinnati's not going to be very good this year. It's going to take a little bit They're still trying to figure that out. They're UCF 6-0. I'm going to say quick. UCF 6-0.
Yeah, I got a UCF win here. This is the rivalry we inherited by going to the Big 12.
I'm good with it. Cincinnati fans are very interesting.
Yeah, but Cincinnati, I don't think they're just not there yet in terms of keeping up with the new conference. Like Cincinnati, to me, is probably going to be finishing the bottom 4 of the conference. I think that's pretty consensus across the board. I mean, Dante Corian is one of the best defensive linemen in all college football. He's no joke. Short of him being an absolute game wrecker in that one, I don't see how Cincinnati gets, especially since it's at UCF. I think UCF gets it done and pretty handily.
Now, Corleone's really good. I mean, we talked about him last year on the pod that, if there's one man that can wreck the UCF offense, it'd be him. But yeah, you mentioned it. Besides that, they've got nobody that is really popping off the page. Now, they did give UCF a good run for their money. We found out a couple days ago that Scott Satterfield, I guess everybody steals signs in college football, I guess, which, doesn't surprise me. But Louisville, Scott Satterfield had Gus's number until last year, and it was a close game. So who knows? But this time it's at the Bounce House. Let's go to Game 7. I'm going to stop saying week because it's actually like Week 8, I think. But game number 7, Iowa State. First L. I said it. I believe I had them as an L when we were doing our way too early predictions. I'm going to stick to that. People are sleeping on Iowa State. Rocco Becht is very talented. You're going on the road. It is hard to play there. I think Coach Campbell's got something to prove this season. I think he had a good team last year. I don't know. I don't see a way, unless UCF, they'd be 6-0 leading up to this, and knowing me, I'll probably be like, I switch my prediction. I'm going UCF to win at Iowa State, knowing me. But preseason Sean, who's thinking with an actual logic, is saying to go into Iowa State and beat Rocco Becht in that team, as of right now, I just don't see it. So I'm going to go a loss for the Knights.
Yeah, I'm going a loss as well, and it's more about Iowa State. Iowa State is one of my very sneaky, under the radar teams in this Big 12 conference. They went through some lows. I mean, what did they win? One game, a couple years ago, right?
It was something like that.
It was something like that, and they improved to, what were they last year? I feel like it was like just in front of me. Or they were 1-8 against the Big 12 rather in 2022, and they were 6-3 in Big 12 play last season. Rocco Becht, like you mentioned, comes back, the son of Anthony Beck, former NFL tight end, by the way, and Tampa native. Really high on him, but I'm also really high on the skill positions at Iowa State. Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins. I don't know if too many people are familiar with those two guys, but I know Oklahoma State's got a pretty good duo over there. Iowa State's is no joke, too. I mean, you can make an argument it could be the best wide receiver tandem in the entire conference. Higgins in particular is probably a all Big 12 type guy, and both guys I see are probably NFL dudes as well. The defense, very quietly, was number 2 in the entire Big 12 last season. They lose a big name in TJ Tampa. He goes off to the NFL, but they still return a lot of production and should get better as well. Think very highly of Matt Campbell as a coach, and I think Ames is a sneaky, difficult place to play. So I do project an L here, but that's more about how I feel about Iowa State.
No, 100%. I think Iowa State's going to be a very scary team in the Big 12. I don't think anybody's going to want to go into Ames and play them this season. Again, we were wrong about preseason. You never know, but I would find it very hard to believe if they didn't take a step up from where they were last year. All right, game number 8. 8, BYU. In the Bounce House. Gary Bohannon coming back to Florida.
Still playing?
Surprisingly. We're not going to talk much BYU because when we talk BYU fans get mad at us. So I'm just going to say win. We're just going to say a win. No offense to BYU fans. I think people are really, I'll say this, compliment to BYU. I think people are really undermining BYU. I think they can make some noise. And by some noise, I mean they'll be better than Cincinnati. I believe they'll be better than Houston, even though Coach Frist is, really good. But I think they'll be a better team than people assume. But I'm still going to give UCF the win here.
Yeah, I think they're going to finish last in the conference, and I think UCF wins this game.
Sorry, BYU fans. Okay, on the very next game, Arizona. This game is the space game. And this is why we're not going to go into the game too much. I'm going to make a prediction. I say Nick says a loss here. I'm going to go a win. It's the space game. I learned my lesson from last year with Oklahoma State. Even if UCF is honestly at this point like 0-9 or 0-8, it'd be 0-8. I'm still going to give UCF the win here. It's the space game. On the logical side, Arizona is a weird team right now. It's like people were so high, and then they've just over the last couple months, Nick, they've every single week, it just seems like people are losing interest in Arizona and forgetting they have two of the top skill players in the country. And by skill players, I mean Noah Fifita and McMillan. So, I mean, I'm going to say a win here, more so because it's at home. It's a space game. People are going to be hyped. I don't get why people are losing hype over Arizona, though. I get new head coach and everything, and we'll see how they play. But, I'm going to go UCF, but that's going to be a very tough game in the Bounce House. My prediction was right. You're going to say loss. I know. It's okay.
I'm going to get a UCF win. Because I think, listen, they stole a game last year that they probably had no business winning, and that was Oklahoma State. And it was as convincing of a win as you're going to see. The space game streak is something. I don't know if it's everything, but it's something. Yeah, I think UCF is going to steal a game that perhaps they should not win. And the one that I earmarked on there is Arizona because it is at home, because it is the space game. It's not that I'm not high on Arizona. I mean, they did lose 28 players via the transfers from a 10-win team last year. But Fifita is definitely one of the better quarterbacks in the country. McMillan is one of the best receivers, handful. I mean, top 1, 2, or 3 in the entire country. There's no disputing that. New head coach coming in there. But, yeah, I just think UCF's going to steal one of these games in the Big 12 against a big-time opponent. And I think it's going to be Arizona here. I think it's going to be Arizona.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think if UCF at that point, you have 2 losses, I have 1. If UCF is serious and is potentially vying for a Big 12 title game at that point, you have to win. You can't lose that game. You can't lose any of these games, but that's a game you have to have circled. At Arizona State, Jeff Sims lost the QB job there. I don't know if I'm totally
He's also
surprised.
still playing, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still playing. Sam Leavitt is the quarterback. Arizona State's it's gonna take some time. I think the head coach is like a really good friend of Gus. I'm sure he'll get them turned around at some point. This season's not it. Arizona State's going to be really bad. In my opinion, I think they'll be the worst in the Big 12 without looking at their schedule. I don't know if their schedule shakes out. I think they're going to be the worst in the Big 12. I'm going to say UCF wins on the road here. And thank God they got this type of road game. I'm not saying Arizona State's, I don't know if they're a hard place to play. All I know is I don't think it is a hard place. So I'm going to say good for UCF to get this type of road game, and they're going to come out with a win.
Yeah, I'm going to go win as well. Arizona State just is not progressing along probably at the pace that I think a lot of people would want over there. But it's going to take time. I'm still pretty high on Kenny Dillingham and what he could do there, but there needs to be a level of patience. I think they're definitely going to be in that bottom 4 of the Big 12. And I don't see UCF dropping that game, even if it's on the road, even if it's across the country, and how ridiculous that is in the conference. But it is what it is. But I think UCF gets it done.
Yeah, our long snapper, Gage King, he played at Arizona State, and when, I forget who asked it at the press conference, but they asked him, what's the home atmosphere like? What's playing at Arizona State? I forgot what the exact question was, but he's like, the weather, the field is great. We'll see if the fans show up. And I'm like, that's actually kind of an interesting. He's like, I haven't been there in a couple of years, which was a good get out of jail free card for probably not talking great about the Arizona State fans. But, again, I think, thank gosh, or, the good thing is that they go on the road to Arizona State and not a school like, Arizona. You got the better of the two road games. All right, West Virginia. Loss. Nightmares about West Virginia. Last year, I think UCF played a really good game besides the 4 turnovers. The 4 turnover games give me nightmares. They were This was our issue last year, Nick. UCF score on everybody. They moved the ball on everybody. They just beat themselves. And I know people, we mentioned on this show, they hate when I say that. They hate when fans or pundits or whatever say they beat themselves. But it is true. A team can beat themselves. Most of the time, it was a fumble. It was something stupid. And that West Virginia game, they lost 41-27, but it could have been flipped the opposite way. Garrett Green is him. I mean, he made some tough plays that game. I think, and this is just in my opinion, I think you could talk about Shedeur. That's going to be one of the tougher quarterbacks UCF faces. I think and no Fafita, obviously. I think Garrett Green and Rocco Becht, in my opinion, for how UCF is probably going to play defense, are two of the tougher upper echelon quarterbacks, in my opinion, that UCF will face. So I'm going to give UCF the loss here. It is on the road. You're going to Morgantown. That's a tough place to play. Those fans are crazy in the best way possible. I'm going to go UCF loss here with one of the 2 games to end the season.
Yeah, handful of reasons here. Morgantown is a tough place to play. West Virginia was 9-4 last year. Now, they played a lot of close games, and I know there's a lot of people that think that luck might flip a little bit, but Garrett Green is back. I think very highly of him. Jaheim White, he was a freshman last year, ran for over 800 yards. He can play. The offensive line, they allowed only 10 sacks last year, and they were 3rd in the nation in running the football. They lose Zach Frazier on that O-line, but they still have a lot of experience there, so they're really big up front. That was a big, big mismatch in last year's game. You know that about that. And then defensively, they led the Big 12 in sacks last year. Not necessarily one particular standout. It's just a full force. They have an arsenal of guys that all return. So West Virginia is another one. They're in that mix for me of that 6-7 that I had mentioned earlier. I think they're right there. So I think West Virginia wins this game.
And I think it's a winnable game for UCF. I mean, if UCF, right now I have them at what? 1 loss. That's now my 2nd loss. If UCF comes into that game with 1 loss, I mean, we're talking potentially winning that game. And who knows? At this point, you can look past maybe the Florida game or the Cincinnati game, and all these games are toss-ups. We don't know how Iowa State's actually going to be. We don't know how Arizona's really going to be. So we have the right, obviously, to look at things a little bit differently. But from the preseason outlook, West Virginia looks really good. Going on the road's tough. So both me and Nick have West Virginia winning. So that's, I think, 2 losses for me, 3 losses for you, heading into the final week for Utah. And I'm gonna be honest. I see a lot of people, not just UCF fans, I see a lot of national people picking UCF in this game. I see a lot of it, which is shock to me, because you would think if you have UCF winning that final week, we talked about it. If UCF wins in that final week, you're assuming that's, Big 12 championship complications, a lot on the line there. Utah is supposed to be the best team in the Big 12 by far. I'm still going loss here. I don't get it. Utah is the best team in the Big 12. It's not really that close. I mean, you can make the argument about Kansas State. You can make the argument about Arizona. I think Utah is by far and away the best team. The only argument you can make, and this is, the only argument, UCF can win this game. If they are like me and Nick say they are, and they only have 2 and 3 losses heading into the final week, anybody can win this game. You can win this game easily. We have to see it on the field. You have a 8-year quarterback, 7-year quarterback that's seen everything starting. You have one of the best coaches in college football coming into the bounce house. Night game. No, we're excited for that. It's going to be a very late night for us in November. But I'm going to go Utah here, and I'm going to reserve the right to change my mind in the middle of the season, which most likely I will. But as of right now, I've got Utah winning that game in the bounce house.
I have Utah winning as well. Just take into account this when you talk about Utah. First of all, it's not just Cam Rising coming back for his 7th or 8th year, whatever it is. They have what will maybe end up being the most productive tight end in the country in Brent Keith. He's back. And by the way, this is year number 7 for Brent Keith. Okay? So quarterback, tight end, 2 7-year guys. And Brent Keith didn't play last year, by the way. So they were without Cam Rising. They were without Brent Keith. They were without their top running back, Micah Bernard. And they took a little bit of a step back here, but a step back was still winning 8 games. And still having the identifiable, really good O-line, really good defense, all those things that you would expect from a Utah football team. The last 2 seasons that they had a healthy Cam Rising, they were playing in the Rose Bowl. So this Utah team, there's a reason why, like you said, they're being picked by many to represent the conference in the college football playoff. I think they're the favorite to absolutely do that. Coming down in the last game of the season, it's not that it's not going to mean a lot for UCF, because it is. I mean, you have them going into this game with 2 losses. I have them going in with 3. But Utah is going to absolutely need this game for my projection of going into the Big 12 title game. And so I'm going to pick Utah to come into the bounce house. And unfortunately, it's going to be the regular season's going to end on a little bit of a whimper, because I just think so highly of Utah, and I think they're going to find their way into the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think, and this is what scares me, because I have them right now. I had them 8-4 in my way too early. Right now, I have them 9-3, which if they go 9-3, we'll be doing somersaults in Orlando. I mean, we'll be thrilled. But I think we both have them losing the last 2 games. We have them losing to West Virginia. We have them losing to Utah. And I think we know UCF fans well enough, Nick, where if they are coming in with 1 and 2 losses respectively, you have 2, I have 1 at that point. If they come in and lose to West Virginia and Utah, most likely with 1 and 2 losses, you have a chance to make the Big 12 championship if you win out. The talk around Orlando, I don't think will be we're doing somersaults because we won 8 or 9 games. The talk around Orlando will be Gus choked to the end of the season, which I'm not trying to get into why this is all preseason predictions. We have no idea what's going to happen. But I do think that part scares me, and that's why we have to look at this realistically and not where the losses happen, not if it's at the beginning of the season or the end of the season or in the middle of the season. We have to look at this as we won 6 games last year. If we take a 2-3 win jump this year, that's a huge positive moving forward. You can't look at it as, oh, we should have made the Big 12 championship. It needs to be UCF took a huge leap, and they need to continue making huge leaps.
Yeah, if it goes the way that we're predicting, I mean, you have them finishing with 9 wins. I have them predicting with 8 wins. I don't really see how anybody could be too upset about that. I suppose, like under my model, having them lose to West Virginia and having them lose to Utah, we'd have to see maybe in the manner in which they lose those games, if that happens. And maybe that would be a different discussion. But, I mean, 8 or 9 wins, I mean, that's a 2-3 win improvement over what they had last year. That puts you in a solid bowl, game for what that's worth. And you ride into the next season after that with some momentum. And there's probably, no more chirping about, oh, is Gus doing enough? Is this and that? Like, I think that goes away. So I don't think it's anything to be scoffed at if they win 8 or 9 football games. And again, we just rattled off so many of these teams that they're gonna have to face, and this is a quality conference. I don't buy into this fact. Like, they're not the Big Ten, they're not the SEC. This is a quality conference, though. I mean, if you look at it, Sean, probably from about, I mean, hell, they don't play Texas Tech this year. I mean, I was a year early on Texas Tech. Now I'm back in on Texas Tech again. I'm gonna die with the Texas Tech, with the Texas Tech take. I'll go down to the hole on that one. But they avoid Texas Tech, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Like, there's a lot of quality teams in this conference, and I think at the very least you want to see them in the mix with them. I had them beating Arizona, which I think would be a nice, feather in your cap, because Arizona's a team that could finish the season ranked, and they're opening up the season ranked. So 8 or 9 wins to me is an accomplishment. That should be, we don't need to throw a parade over it necessarily, but it would be a good step in the right direction.
8 or 9 wins and a win at Florida would be huge. I think even 8 or 9 wins without a win at Florida would still be huge.
I will say, to me, their floor, if I had to put a floor, like, you could easily flip-flop the TCU game. You could easily flip-flop Florida. You could flip-flop Colorado, because I know you picked them. I could go back against Arizona, and West Virginia is not totally unwinnable. Like, I'd probably put their floor, and this is like, I'd say 5. 5 is my floor. My ceiling is probably 9, but I'm going 8.
Yeah, I'd say the floor is 6 wins.
I know that's a wide range of outcomes, but
yeah,
I just think there is some question marks that on this team.
Oh, for sure, and there's question marks with every team, but this team specifically, we won't know until, like I said, week 5 or 6. You won't know. Like, remember week 1 last year? I forgot, who lost? It was a Big 12 team was it Oklahoma State that just lost?
South Alabama, right?
Yeah, was it that game, like, where we were like, wow, like, what just happened? So it's like
Texas Tech lost to Wyoming. Yeah.
So it's like, you don't know. Like, you don't know how good these teams are actually going to be. You have no idea how good UCF is going to be. We get to, like, we hear all the talk. We hear all of it. But at the end of the day, we're not listening to Colorado sports people. We're not listening to Arizona people. Like, we can only control what UCF is telling us. And right now, there's a lot of confidence. There's a lot of confidence from the coaches. And hopefully it works out.
They have to play smart defense, because you look up and down this schedule, Sean. Colorado, Iowa State, Arizona, West Virginia, Utah. I mean, these are really good offenses. And those offenses are all probably going to finish, you can make an argument, top 25 in the country. Now, UCF is probably going to finish in the top 25 in overall offense too, because it's just what they do. But you've got to be able to stop some of these teams. So, but the most important part of that is I love the interior of this UCF defense. I think we both agree on that. They can piece together everything else. I think they got a shot.
For sure. 9-3. I think I'm crazy for saying that, but we'll see. Nick 8-4, much more realistic. Floor for Nick 5 wins.
Much more level-headed.
Yeah, much more level-headed. Floor for Nick 5 wins. Floor for me 6 wins. I will say, if UCF goes out and wins 6 or 7 games, I know that even 7 wins would be a step up. But at the end of the day, the Gus chatter will get louder. If UCF wins another 6 games and that's it, the offseason is going to be rough. Not just for fans, but for us, because we have to talk about it for
it's going to be rough for
months.
Gus. I mean, for Gus himself, imagine what things he'll say then.
Oh, I know. So there is a different aura. I love using that word now. There's a different aura surrounding this team. There seems like there's a different energy, a mindset that we need to just be better. And you like to see that. So we'll see what happens. It's the last week without UCF football. And then we get to talk about it for 4 months straight, which I'm so pumped. I don't think I've been more pumped in the last 2 seasons. Maybe it's just because it's here, but this offseason was rough. I have, like I said, there's been nothing to talk about. The realignment stuff saved me last offseason because it was college football every week. I'm so glad that we finally have football to discuss. Nick, give your final thoughts. We're going to see these guys next Tuesday. We're going to see you all next Tuesday with our breakdown. So it's mere days away until you have to hop back on and talk with me about New Hampshire.
Yep, 6 days away, Sean. We finally made it. So excited for that. Can't tell.
So pumped. You're so pumped, Nick.
I'm so pumped. I'm bringing so much high energy right now. But no, I really am excited and looking forward to getting out to Orlando and seeing some of you. I know last year when we started doing the live shows before the game, I think we were both nervous. Like, does anybody even know who we are? And it turned out fantastic. So we've only grown so much. We've grown so much more since last year. A lot of that is all the heavy lifting that you do for this show. So absolutely appreciate that. I know everybody else appreciates it as well. So 3rd year together. Let's go have a good season.
Hey, I can't talk by myself. I do it sometimes. I can't do it for stuff like this. So A pleasure having you on as always, and we're going to continue doing it. 4 months of Sean, Nick, and a little bit of Steven Leonard in there for some of these post-game, or all the post-game live shows that we're doing from the Cabanas next week. Really pumped. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Like I said, our usual schedule will be Thursdays and Sundays. Don't know how we're going to pull off the Sundays, but we're going to do it. But next week, Tuesday and Friday are going to be the 2 pod episodes, so make sure you tune in on Tuesday for our entire breakdown on a team that we have not really known anything about yet and have not done any research on yet, and you probably won't care, because Kent State was the same thing. We talk about all these players, and then we beat them by 50, and it's like, well, that all went down the toilet. But it's fun to talk about football. All right, everybody, this has been Charge On, presented by BetOnline. We will see you on Tuesday.